Good evening, everyone. My name is Tiffany Montoya, Hearing Officer for San Francisco Public Works. Cerise Waiters is the clerk of this hearing. This hearing is being recorded via Zoom and will be available afterward through a link on the San Francisco Public Works website, sfpublicworks.org. As this is a virtual hearing, there is no sign-in sheet, so if you would like to receive information about the results of this hearing, please send an email to the email address listed on the hearing notice. This public hearing is being held to consider 4 items concerning tree removals. All items are staff-approved tree removals and the public has protested. And the order in which they will be heard is as followed. Order number 205280 at 1634 Alabama Street. Second will be order number 205281 at 101X Belmont Avenue adjacent to 801 Anza Street, followed by order number 205282 at 240 Hans Street and 1501 Sunnydale Avenue. And lastly, order number 205283 at 539 Bryant Street. My job as the hearing officer is to gather the facts for the hearing item, listen to your testimonies, and help our Director of Public Works make determinations. I will not be making any decisions today. Instead, I will forward the findings from this hearing and make my recommendations to the director. The director will make the final determinations. When the director's determinations are made, the department will notify you of them if you have provided contact information. The hearing will proceed as follows for the 4 cases. First, I will ask Public Works staff to speak and present the case. Then I will allow the applicant to speak and any member of the public or witness who wants to speak. Then the department, should they like to address any direct comments, and the applicant, should there be any rebuttals. Each speaker has up to 3 minutes to speak. The clerk will monitor the time for all speakers and will indicate when the speaker has 30 seconds left. If you are a party to this proceeding, I will call on you to speak. If you would like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let us know before you speak. You will then have the standard 3 minutes to provide your comments. If you are a member of the public or witness who wants to speak, wait for me to call for public comments and then use Zoom's raise your hand feature if you're on a computer and put yourself in the queue to speak. If you are dialing in on phone, dial *9 to indicate you're raising your hand. When it's your turn to speak, I will recognize you. If you're on the phone and you're muted, press *6 to unmute yourself. If you would like to use visual materials in your presentation, please let us know, and you will then have the 3 minutes to provide your comments. Comments and questions should be addressed to me and not to the department or the applicant. If you cannot finish your comments within the allotted time, you may submit written testimony to me by the end of this hearing. If I feel that a question is warranted, I will ask the question. After all comments are completed, I will close the item. We will now begin the hearing. Before we hear the first order, members of the public may raise their hand to address items within the department's jurisdiction, but are not presented on today's agenda. You may raise your hand now via Zoom's raise your hand feature or press *9 if calling in by phone. Please know you can also send your written comments to urbanforestry@sfdpw.org. Looks like we have one hand. Sharice, are you able to?
Yes, Ms. Bowler, can you unmute yourself? I gave you the ability to speak.
Can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Well, I just want to say that I can't move the screen, and I don't know. There are 6 items, and then is that it? I can't move down, and I can't because the screen the stuff is too wide on my screen, and I can't access the bar that moves things.
Oh, okay. Yes, item number 6 is the last item. There is nothing after item number 6.
Okay, then I don't need to move the screen.
Correct.
Okay, thank you.
Okay. You're welcome.
Then we have
Mr.
Nolte.
Yes, good evening. I sent in a couple weeks ago a protest to trees that are being removed on an alleyway and next to Van Ness, and I sent it twice, and I never got a response from DPW that the trees are being protested. So I wish you would look into the box that you have and answer all the people's questions for tree that you're referring to. Because apparently nobody is not in a timely manner responding to the public when they send emails to your box. Thank you very much. Bye.
Thank you. Okay, any last hands before we go to order number 205280? Oh,
I just wanted to know who the DPW's director is. I thought he was moving on to Bart. Is there somebody else replacing him, and who? Thank you.
thank you, Mr. Nolte. Okay. Now for that question, I don't have an answer at this time. So we will jump into, I don't think there's any hands left. So we will jump into order number 205280 at 1632 Alabama Street to consider the removal of one street tree with replacement. I will now have Public Works make its presentation.
Hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can.
Yes, cool. Can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Great, okay. Hi, Steve Keller, Bureau of Urban Forestry. The first case is the removal of one tree at 1634 Alabama Street. The Bureau approved this tree for removal and the public has protested. This is a photo of the tree. It's a Pittosporum undulatum. It's in fairly poor condition. It has been pruned very poorly in the past. Maybe the adjacent property owner had kept the canopy quite small, which is not ideal to maintain good health of a tree. Upon inspection of the tree, we found that the base had a lot of, the lower trunk and the root flare had a lot of decay. I was the one that actually posted the removal notice on this tree, and I conceivably could have pushed it over if I really tried. So we're afraid that as winter comes and the soil gets wet, there's a high probability that this tree could fall over. The reason I inspected the tree was someone had called 311 asking for an inspection of the tree because they were concerned about its condition. In this photo, the tree in question is the tree on the left. The neighbor was concerned because the smaller tree downhill on the right actually fell over. You could see the stump in this photo. So that little tree that fell over was in a similar condition to the tree that we had proposed for removal. So the residents had called us to inspect it, and we determined that the tree is unsafe, and it's the best thing to do going forward is to remove and replace this tree. And we will be able to replace this site because the underground utilities do not interfere with the existing tree site. You can see in this photo the sewer, gas, and water line are all clumped at the bottom of the driveway. And there's also a lot of overhead utilities, which means there's unlikely to be significant utilities in the sidewalk. And if we can get a commitment from a nearby neighbor or resident, we will be able to replace this tree relatively quickly if we can get a watering commitment. Thank you, that is all.
Thank you. Now, any member of the public provide comment, please raise their hand for us to call on you. Again, if you're on the phone, you raise your hand by pressing *9. Okay, I see a few hands here. We can start with, let's see, Maxence Nanchuri.
Yeah. Hi, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, thank you. My name is Max Natchery. I was the caller for this case. Steve mentioned my name, so I just wanted to say a few words. I've lived at 1634 Alabama for 14 years, and I have seen the health of the tree decline rapidly over the past year. In fact, if one were to take a photo of the tree today, I unfortunately don't have one, you would see that the health has decayed quite significantly. The canopy has become much more sparse, and most of the leaves now are brown rather than green. So I called SF Public Work because indeed the tree just down the hill at 1632 fell after some gusts of wind earlier this year, and I have been concerned that the tree in front of 1634 would see the same outcome the next time that there is a storm coming. Yeah, I think that's all I have to say.
Thank you. Then we will go to Ms. Dichi Bowler.
Yes, I didn't understand what the plans were for the replacement. There seem to be 2 trees that are lacking now. Are 2 trees going to be replaced? And what with? Thank you.
Thank you. Are there any other hands up? If not, Steve, I'll give you a chance if you'd like to address any of the questions before we move on.
Actually, Ms. Montoya, there are 2 other hands. We have Mr. John Nolte and then Michael Nolte.
Oh, thanks, Sharice, did not see that.
Okay, go ahead, John Nolte. You should be able to unmute.
Hi, good evening. I understand that I heard that the first speaker was possibly a property owner or resident on that street. I was wondering, since that person may be still on the listening, that maybe we should get a confirmation from that person to help with the watering of the tree or trees, since there may be 2 trees. You showed two plots that, or at least 1 plot that's empty and 1 tree that's possibly going to be removed tonight. So I would appreciate if you can contact that person and or get an obligation of that person to water 1 or both of the trees when they're planted. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Mr. Michael Nolte?
Yes, Michael Nolte. I also concerned about both plots and trees. Since the first one has been already removed, what is the condition of, or the timeline of replacement, if it can be replaced, and what kind of tree can be put in there, and what commitment can be made to keep it healthy for the next 3 years. Also, for the one that is on the agenda, same questions. What kind of tree replacement? What is the timeline? And since I didn't hear that in the presentation, and hopefully there would be some commitment from the property owner or from DPW to maintain it for 3 years. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, I'm showing no more hands. Is that right, Sharice?
Yes, there are. I don't see any other hands at this time.
Okay. Steve, would you like the chance to?
Yes. Essentially, if Public Works can get a commitment from the adjacent property owner or someone that lives on the block, if they can give us a commitment to water a new tree for 3 years. We will put the trees on the short list to get replaced in approximately 6 months. The tree species would likely be a medium stature tree that we don't want it to grow too tall because there are overhead power lines, but because the houses are set back from the right of way, or at least it's a wide sidewalk, we'll be able to do at least a tree that does grow fairly broad. So one of the larger medium-sized trees. And again, how quickly it gets replaced is it depends on how soon someone from the public can give us a commitment to water it for 3 years. That's our biggest bottleneck right now, is our capability to water trees. Thanks.
Okay. I'll allow 1 minute for Mr. Natchery to respond. I see your hand up.
Yes, thank you all for providing the feedback, and Steve for answering these questions. So please contact me. You have my number, you have my email, so that we can follow up on this topic. We'd love to have a new tree once the current tree has been removed and properly dealt with.
Okay, I will do that.
Thank you. I will now close this item and I will make my recommendations to the director. Now we will move on to order number 205281, 101 X Beaumont Avenue adjacent to 801 Anza Street to consider the removal of one street tree without replacement. I will now have Public Works make their presentation.
Well, can you see my screen?
Yes.
Okay. Yes. This is the removal of one tree without replacement. It's on Beaumont at Anza. The Bureau of Urban Forestry responded to this tree for an inspection because the large branch with the arrow pointing to it fell off. So that's what prompted us to come look at the tree. And ignore that little white font where it says significant tree. That's a typo from a PowerPoint. Again, we came to look at the tree because it had failed. Upon the inspection, we found that the main trunk of the tree already had advanced decay. And here's a picture of where the large branch split off. The kind of oval-shaped darker hole in the middle is supposed to show that there's a pre-existing cavity that actually goes deep into the trunk. Given the size of the tree and how all of the growth now is kind of leaning uphill, as the decay advances over the years, it's pretty much foregone conclusion that the tree would snap in half and kind of fall into the sidewalk. So we're trying to remove the tree before that happens. This is just a photo on the trunk showing below the kind of paler wood, you'll see a dried out conch here. This is a fungal fruiting body, just showing the tree is infected with a decay fungus. Unfortunately, you can see in this photo, the sidewalk is very, very narrow. So to current standards, we would not be able to plant a new tree back in this same tree basin. The minimum requirement is a 7.5-foot sidewalk, including the curb, in order to put a new tree back. If the homeowner was really motivated to get a new tree back, we could pave some of the landscaping at back of sidewalk, which could make the sidewalk wider. That is a possibility, but I don't know if we'll go that route. This is a final photo. This is just showing another fruiting body at the base of the tree. So there's decay in the lower trunk and the upper trunk. So we just think it's a matter of time before the tree were to have a larger trunk failure. Thanks.
Okay, we will now have any member of the public who would like to provide comment may raise their hand and we will call on you. I don't think we have anyone on the phone, but if I'm wrong, again, it's *9 to raise your hand. Okay, I'm seeing Ms. DG Bowler's hand up first.
Yes, thank you. I would like to know that a tree, something is going to replace that canopy. We need every little leaf we can manage to have. And since it's sort of a guess whether that tree is going to collapse, I think to grant it its due, it should, we should expect to replace it. If not right there, then somewhere else. It's really important that we keep all the leaves growing that we can. I'm talking partly from what's going on with the weather in general now. We have to understand that and take it into consideration and do what we can to help ourselves. So thank you.
Thank you. We'll now move to Mr. John Nolte.
Hi, good evening. On the agenda, it states that this tree is to be removed, but also replaced. So that's not what the person from Bureau of Forestry said. And also, because we're having this meeting, and you keep on, the hearing officer keeps on saying that the director is going to sign off on something. We have no director for DPW. There's a search nationwide for a new director. That our the director last week resigned and moved over to BART. So I don't see how this meeting is feasible if there's no director for the Department of Public Works to actually sign off on these issues that are being brought up in this hearing tonight. So if there's no director, therefore there should be no hearing, and these should be continued until we have a director for DPW. Thank you.
Thank you. I can say the director is still is here through the end of the week. I just am not aware of who the replacement is at this time. We can now move to Mr. Michael Nolte.
Yes, Michael Nolte here. It would be nice to have a new tree plotted at the site. If a tree is not feasible, then there are always other options of other kinds of greenery, such as bushes or something of that nature, be put in the square. I don't see why DPW can't come up with alternatives. If you can't put a tree in for some reason, then why don't we ever talk about bushes or something, other kind of greenery that can be planted in these spaces? It's all about something that can be beautify the streets. And trees are not always, if it's not feasible, then there are other options. I don't think it should be either or, nothing. I think that there should be options, and all options should be on the table. Even though this is called a tree removal hearing, the tree is one issue, but the replacement is another. And the replacement should be looked at as what options, and any options, can be used to beautify a neighborhood and give it some beautification. So I would like to have an answer to that from the presenter. Thank you.
Okay. Sharice, are you able to see any more hands?
I think that's everyone.
Okay.
I do not see any more hands at this time. And just to let you know, the agenda does state without replacement.
Thank you.
Yes.
The department, Mr. Keller, if you'd like to speak, you can.
Sure, yeah. I think Public Works and the Bureau of Urban Forestry is motivated to plant as many trees as possible. It's just, we have restrictive codes that say, you know, certain sidewalks are no longer feasible to have street trees. Most of it has to do with ADA requirements. You need a 4-foot path of travel. And then Buff's own requirement is a 3x3 tree basin. So that's where we get the 7.5-foot sidewalk for new trees to be planted. Additionally, we want to plant trees in spaces that allow the trees to thrive without creating tripping hazards. So unfortunately, planting trees in narrower sidewalks is becoming less of a priority, and we're trying to focus our planting in areas where we think trees will be better suited for the long term. And again, you know, if there's any empty basins that are plantable near this tree, and if there's a nearby resident that is able to water, they can contact us and we can make that happen. You know, if the adjacent property owner really wanted some type of like a really small palm tree or a really small tree species, we might be able to provide something that could be planted in the setback. But again, we don't want to plant any trees that get too large when they're planted that close to someone's building. Thanks.
Okay. We will now move to order number 205282 over at 240 Hahn Street and 501 Sunnydale Avenue. This is to consider the removal of 2 street trees with replacement. I'll now have Public Works make their presentation.
Thank you. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Yes, this is for the removal of two trees with replacement. It's associated with the Sunnydale Phase 1A3. For people who aren't familiar with it, the Sunnydale Hope SF project includes the complete rebuilding of the existing Sunnydale Velasco Housing Authority site through the city's Hope SF program. It'll consist of rebuilding of a neighborhood and adding more residential units than are currently there. This is kind of on the upper left-hand corner is a photo of the property now. And in the bottom right-hand corner is kind of a mock-up drawing of what the neighborhood will look like after construction and all the phases are done. You can see that new buildings are planted to the edge of the right-of-way, and as each phase is completed, trees will be planted to capacity within the right-of-way. This is a photo of this is an existing site plan of the property. The 2 trees that we're dealing with tonight are the 2 red dots on it right here. These are the only trees that are located within the right-of-way where tree removal permits are required. This is another site plan of a proposed construction where you can see the 2 red dots are right up against the footprint of the building. This is just another schematic of what the type of construction will happen at Sunnydale. Large condos and apartment and retail built close to the right-of-way, and then a lot of greenery and landscaping planted within the sidewalk. This is one of the trees proposed for removal that the Bureau of Urban Forestry approved. It's a Monterey cypress. This is the tree that's denoted as 240 Hahn. The tree is in fair condition, but will suffer considerable impacts during construction. We didn't really think it was feasible to try to protect this tree. The footprint of the new building is essentially going to be built to the trunk of the tree. So it would require a significant amount of pruning, and approximately 50% of the root mass would be severely impacted. And we think the replacement plan for the project as a whole will more than make up for the loss of this tree. Here's another tree, the Canary Island date palm. This tree is denoted as 1501 Sunnydale. This tree is in good condition, but again, it's the significant construction impacts that the tree will suffer. Doesn't really make it feasible to keep in the long term, and it's also a really poor species that gets really large. It's a really poor species to be planted so close to a large building foundation, the one of which will be planted, or the type of building that will be planted here. It's not a wise choice to keep this tree so close to a new building. Again, just to reiterate, it's a very, very large project that is essentially rebuilding an entire neighborhood. And despite the trees being healthy, we don't think it's wise to have the trees remain, especially with the construction impacts that will happen. And the project is going to be planting many, many new trees throughout the neighborhood. Thanks.
Thank you. Any member of the public who would like to provide comment may raise their hand and we will call on you, and you will have 3 minutes to speak. I'm seeing a Ms. Raimi Dare. Apologies if I pronounced their names incorrectly.
Yes, this is Raimi Dare from Mercy Housing. Is it possible for me to make a short presentation?
Yes.
Yes, give me just one moment. I'll promote you to panelist. Now, Ms. Dara, as you come in, you will need to unmute yourself once again. And then once you begin making your presentation, then you will have 3 minutes.
You see my presentation?
Yes,
Yep.
we can.
Thank you. So Steve Keller already addressed some of this, but I thought I would just give you a little bit of context about the overall development so that can help make the decision about the demolition application. So HOPE SF is the initiative that we're under in terms of developing overall Sunnydale public housing into a new community with all new streets and utilities. And it's part of a citywide effort to disrupt intergenerational poverty and in this community. Oops. Next. For the next slide. So Sunnydale is an existing public housing community with over 700 units in these existing 2-story buildings. And as Steve described, we're developing all new housing at this site with replacement housing for the existing residents, as well as new affordable housing and market rate. This is the Sunnydale 50-acre site before any construction activity. As you can see, there are about 4 or 5 existing streets, and you can see the existing landscape as well. This is a diagram of the master plan, and to show that there's going to be an all-new street grid with all new street trees and landscaping, bioretention areas, and then there's a mix of affordable and middle-income housing. We also have a community center and other amenities that we're building, including 4 open spaces or parks. This is the development that will be constructed at the site where the 2 trees are, and this will be affordable housing with a fair amount of ground floor space for the Department of Public Health's Wellness Center, a nonprofit early child education center, and neighborhood retail. This is not in the same footprint as where the 2 trees are, but as part of the overall phase, we're also building a community center and a recreation center for the community. The overall development for Sunnydale HOPE SF is actually part of a set of agreements that have already been approved by the city, including a 25-year development agreement, which outlines everything that I just described. We also developed a master streetscape plan in conjunction with Buff and other city agencies, as well as master utility plans. And for this particular phase of construction, we have a
30
street
seconds.
permit that has been under review by the different city agencies and is close to being pulled for construction. And that concludes my presentation. Thank you.
Thank you. Okay, and we'll now go to any member of the public who'd like to provide comments. I'm seeing a few hands. We can start with Ms. Dichi Bowler.
Well, I had not consciously raised my hand, though I have something I want to say about the Monterey cypress. In my book, that is an indigenous tree, and it has rights. I see that there's going to be much effort made to plant a whole lot of trees. Nothing was said about how they would be maintained, which is the second thing I would comment on. But the primary thing is that flat out, I believe that the policy of the city should be to respect that tree for its right to stand there. It's been doing it a long time, and it should be allowed to continue to do it, and people should plan around trees like that and not remove them. I can't, that's all I can say. If I could underline what I'm saying, I would underline it. And I think the city should have a policy of protecting trees and not for any reason have people's desires or whims or choices have the right to take the life of that tree away. On top of that, we need it. So thank you for listening. That's it.
Thank you. We will move to Mr. John Nolte.
Yes, good evening. I have three things to say. Number one, the agenda that was given for on August 27th was correctly what I stated. So you revised the agenda, never made a point of that to the public, and for the item number 2. So I have a problem with that, of revising agendas and changing what they say on a whim. Next issue, the cypress, I noticed that was under a power line, and here I hear that Mercy Housing is going to be changing the everything on the property. So basically, what they're doing is just taking out everything and then rebuilding a new grid, new roads, new everything, just to make it look new. And then the third, with the palm tree, that was under a light pole. So, you know, again, your infrastructure is already there, infrastructure apparently being taken out. And also, it's sad that trees are like the muni lines, muni poles, and the lighting being taken out in one full sweep. So I find this very, what's the word I want to use here? Destructing of public property just for the well-being of a new development that's been in the works for a number of years, but just so that it meets the quota for the city because of the choices that were made and the agreements that were made and the lawsuits that were done to get to where we're at now. And unfortunately, this is what's happening. Thank you.
Thank you. We now have a Monty Hill.
Yes, I have a presentation. Is it possible to share that?
Yes, just a moment, I'll promote you. Mr. Hill, as you're coming in
Yes.
again, you'll need to unmute yourself. Okay, go ahead. And then you should be able to use the share screen feature.
Can you see the plan
Yes.
view?
Yes, we can.
Okay. Thank you. This is this is Monty Hill. I'm with Merrill Morris Partners. We're the landscape architect for this phase of the Sunnydale project. This plan is adapted from the Sunnydale Hope SF Master Infrastructure Plan that is the result of a long design process that Rami Dare had mentioned earlier in the presentation for this part. The street trees are throughout. They line the streets throughout the project. The tree spacing and the species have been well thought out to respond to the character and the lighting, the lines of sight, the utilities, the architecture of each intersection and each street. The tree selection, it's a mix of evergreen and deciduous. All these trees are chosen to reinforce urban design concepts and replace an aging infrastructure that is badly in need of replacement. It's designed to provide a continuous tree canopy so that each street feels tree-lined and lush. And each species will create an individual identity for each street. And we're planting, as part of this phase, you can see phase 1A3 is outlined in the purple magenta. We're planting 26 replacement trees in just this area. The intersection at Hahn and Sunnydale, it's a major gateway to the community, so important to kind of reinforce the design guidelines that are present throughout. The street trees along Hahn Avenue, we've chosen to be the Armstrong maple. It's a fast-growing upright tree. It doesn't damage the sidewalks. It's popular with birds and squirrels. I think it's a good choice for Hahn Street. Along Sunnydale Avenue, there's a couple different trees. We've chosen the Little Gem Magnolia that provides kind of a transition tree. It's smaller, 15 feet by 15 feet, has fragrant flowers. And then the larger trees lining the street would be the London plane tree that, it's won many awards from Royal Horticultural Societies. It withstands city smog and soot very well, and has proven to be a very nice street tree. So again, we think all these species are going to do very well in this area of San Francisco, and they're all on the recommended street tree species lists from the SF Urban Forestry Council. So thank you.
Thank you. Sharice, was that everyone?
No, there's Michael Nolte. There's one more.
Oh, thank you.
Yes, thank you. Go ahead, Mr. Nolte.
Well, I'm surprised to see, colorful pictures because, actually, I would like to see that design person, Monty, to do the rest of the city, having such beautiful trees throughout the whole city and not just on one development. But unfortunately, our forefathers have created kind of a mess of trees that seem to be constantly having to be fixed in San Francisco. Hence, we have these tree hearings. The presenter had said that we are here to demolish the trees, and with that in mind, replacing them with trees that obviously there's been already a design phase that has decided what the replacements will be, which the DPW didn't actually mention, but I think that overall the project has to look like a continuous set of trees, if that's already been decided at other hearings, because this is now the final part of dealing with the trees. It's now one of the last remaining things to deal with for the project to go forward. So there's really not much we can do at this hearing, but just give kudos to hopefully a good development in the future for the residents that will live there. Thank you.
Thank you. Shrews, would you mind confirming one last time that we went through everyone? Having trouble with my participants box.
I see no other hands at this time.
Great, thank you. I'll give the department a chance to speak if there was anything that you'd like to address, Steve.
I guess I'll just, the fact that, the Bureau of Urban Forestry and our staff, we kind of view ourselves as being the last line of defense for trees and development. We do know that often development does, occasionally development does get too far progressed, and it kind of forces the removal of trees. And we do try our best to, when we can, preserve nice trees and make developers work with nice trees. In this case, we don't think that these two trees are worth enough to fight for, and that the development is going to be built in extreme proximity to these trees, and given the how large of a master plan and landscape plan they have, that we feel like the neighborhood will get more than enough mitigation for the loss of these trees. Thanks.
Thank you. We'll now move to the last order, which is order number 205283 at 539 Bryant Street, to consider the removal of one street tree without replacement. I'll now bring it back to Mr. Steve Keller.
Okay. Can you see my screen?
Yes.
Cool. Okay. This is a section from the building permit, or no, the tree removal application. It says, due to the undergrounding of utilities at 531 Bryan Street, PG&E requires that a new joint pole be located on Bryan Street near the corner of Bryan and Zoe. The new joint pole location is in conflict with an existing tree, necessitating the tree to be removed, as there is no alternative for the pole that's acceptable to PG&E. This is a Google Street View of the project. The building outlined in red is going to be built into a 6-story office building. Part of the planning process or city code says that the high voltage utility lines that are in front of this property have to be undergrounded. In order for them to be undergrounded, a new pole has to be built somewhere in order for the lines to pop up back above ground to continue down the street. Again, the project 531 Bryant is outlined in red. The tree they've requested to remove is on a separate property, 539 Bryant. The arrow is pointing to it. This is a schematic of their joint trench plans, showing it going from 531 Bryant, crossing Zoe Street, and then a new pole being installed in extreme proximity to the tree basin. Here's a photo of the proposed tree removal. And again, I wanted to reiterate, the Bureau of Urban Forestry did deny this permit. They're claiming that the pole has to be installed where the yellow dot is, which would likely require tree removal. The Bureau of Urban Forestry thinks that there has to be another way. Like it can't be impossible to build this new above ground pole and not save this tree. I haven't gotten an answer as to why the pole couldn't be shifted a few feet to the right, which would likely preserve the tree, or maybe bring or dig the joint trench a little bit further down and maybe install the new pole in between two trees where the other red dot is. Here's another picture of the tree. It's a Brisbane box. This particular building has about 7 of these trees all planted at the same time, and it is quite a nice tree. So we don't think, we would like the applicant and to work with PG&E and come up with a different engineering design that allows this tree to remain and for them to install a new pole on the sidewalk. We think it should be possible, and we'd really like to not lose this tree. If it is removed, the applicant will have to pay the assessed value of the tree, which will likely just be higher than our standard renew fee. I guess here's the picture for context. Thank you. That is all.
Thank you. We'll now have the applicant speak. If you can raise your hand.
Yeah, I believe Susan is the
Yes.
applicant. Yeah.
Susan, yes. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Suggi. You should be able to speak.
Thank you. Can you hear me now?
Yes, we can.
May I share my screen with you?
Yes, just a moment. Let me promote you to panelist.
Join as a panelist. Okay.
And then as you come in, you will need to unmute yourself again, and then you should be able to use the share screen feature.
I'm going to use the share screen feature right now.
Okay.
And right here. Let's see if you can see can you see my screen?
Not yet.
Here we go. How about that?
Yes, now it's starting.
Thank you very much. So what I'm going to review today, and I have others that will also provide some expert information as to why we can't find another location. And believe me, we have tried so hard with PG&E to find one. We've been at this for 2 years with them. But what we will review is, first of all, what our project is about and the community benefits of that project. And our landscape architect will also reiterate a little bit more about that. And then why it's so critical that the project have this additional tree, have this additional pole, and why it needs to be where it needs to be, and the alternatives we explored with you, with PG&E. And
okay, so then you will have 3 minutes, and then if you can introduce the next speaker, then I can be able to unmute them. Well, you're the only one making the presentation, though, is that correct?
That's correct. And then we have 3 other speakers, and we can just go sequentially if that's okay with you. And I should be
right. You just introduce each other, and then I will time everyone.
Right.
Okay. Thank you.
So this is a picture of the site. You can see that where my arrow is pointing is where our building is, and where Steve pointed is where the tree is being removed. And as you can see, this is a very, very densely populated part of the city in terms of buildings and very little open space. And so in our project, we've really worked hard to try to alleviate that and give the neighbors some publicly accessible open space. This is another picture of the existing building. And this is one of the PG&E poles that needs to remain, and the rest need to come down. And that is why we need to put another pole across the street. And Shane Harris will explain the alternatives that we looked at. And this is where we want to go. This is the building that will replace it. We have a letter of support from the owners of the adjacent property because they know the importance of upgrading this area. We will replace the tree, as you can see. I would love to have more trees in front of our building, but we have PG&E guy wires, we've got loading zones, and we aren't allowed to, and vaults, and we aren't allowed to put more trees here. But we have created in the back of our building, this is what Zoe Street looks like right now. And this is what we want it to look like. As you can see, we have a courtyard. It's hard to tell from this, but Maya Nakasaki from Miller Landscaping will give you a little bit of better picture of this. This is a courtyard. It's 1,500 square feet. It's open space, publicly accessible. We've got trees in there. We've got landscaping in there. And we've created a place for the community and for the people occupying our building and other buildings around us to go and just sit and have lunch and use some open space that's landscaped, because there's just none of it in this area. And we also have created some micro retail units here. This one will be dedicated to a community-based organization to run an incubator for small businesses. And in addition to this, we will be providing probably over 250 construction and support worker jobs, which are so sorely needed in the city right now, and 4.4 million of contributions to the city for affordable housing and other impact fees. I will submit to you a copy of the letter from our adjacent neighbor who is supporting us at 539 Bryant. This is a copy of it showing that they are very much in support of what we're trying to do. And I will then hand it over to Maya Nakasaki from Miller Company, who will talk a little bit more about the open space and how we're trying to mitigate the loss of this one
30
tree.
seconds. Okay.
Well done.
Okay, thank you. Just a moment. Okay, go ahead. Maya, you should be able
Yes.
to speak.
Hi.
Yeah.
Yes. Hi, my name is Maya Nagasaka, and I'd like to share my screen as well.
Okay, just a
Mhm.
moment. Okay, we can see your screen. You'll have 3 minutes once you begin speaking.
Great. Thank you. My name is Maya Nagasaka from Miller Company Landscape Architects, and we're working on the 531 Bryant Street project with Susan. We just wanted to kind of give you a context of our constraints on our sidewalk, but what we are doing on site in order to make this a more sustainable place. I just wanted to kind of give that story to everyone. First of all, Zoe Street is 7 foot wide sidewalk, which does not allow for street trees. As Steve Keller had mentioned before, we cannot, we just don't have enough adequate space for tree planting and a 4 foot wide path of travel. On Bryant Street, this building is actually powered by electric. And so we have quite a bit of electrical vaults, and they have clearance areas. We also have a passenger loading zone where we cannot plant. So we've kind of carved out a space for a tree to be planted, and would like to match it with what would be possibly taken out to Brisbane box, which is a drought tolerant tree. So that's the streetscape. I'd like to also explain a little bit more about our landscape on site. We do have a landscape area with a courtyard. It has an underground cistern that would basically collect water from the roof and recycle it for irrigation. We have a 10-foot setback for fire, but where it's not required, we have added another tree and shade tolerant plants along the east side of the property. On the roof, 50% of the roof is living roof, meaning that it is all planting. We have a green roof and also all over the place, which will mitigate the heat island effect. It will also provide a habitat for birds and butterfly. And also it will slow down the stormwater, and it's a great green infrastructure that we think it will be contributing to the site. So that is pretty much it for our landscape design. And we are very excited to
30 seconds.
we're very excited for this project to be successful and having it being a sustainable site. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Was there a third? That's what I understood from before.
It looks like Seamus Canning.
Okay, that's good.
Can you hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can.
Can I go ahead and share my screen also?
Okay, just a moment.
Okay, can you still hear me? Yeah.
Yes, we can hear you and see you.
Okay. So I want to go ahead and my name is Seamus. I'm with County Electric. I'm the PG&E expediter on this job, and I've worked with PG&E in San Francisco for almost 26 years. I have a lot of experience with PG&E and dealing with the hard infrastructure rules they have regarding moving poles and adding power to new buildings. So on this job, I've been working with Susan, the developer, for the new power for the installation for the 531 brand. We've been working with PG&E to design this underground plan for quite some time, and I've tried to find an alternative not to have to remove this tree. And unfortunately, there's absolutely no alternative. The reason for the need for the new pole is as follows. Due to the size of the new building, we'll need to provide a transformer, which we are doing. This transformer room is being located along Zoe Street. The power source for the transformer room must be fed from underground in accordance with PG&E Green Book rules. In order for us to receive underground power from the existing overhead lines, for this transformer room, the power cabling must run down one pole and then up another pole. This cannot happen on the same pole. This is what PG&E call up and down. In order to achieve this up and down, we need to use poles in the area which do not already have either a primary service going up or down or have a transformer on them. The availability of such poles do not exist anywhere adjacent to our property, and consequently must be achieved by adding a new pole at the corner of Zoe and Brent in front of 539 Brent. There is a tree at the corner of 539 Brent whose canopy, obviously the tree we're talking about, sorry?
Were you trying to share screen as well?
Yes, but they're not come up now.
Yeah, it's not showing yet. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So currently there's the tree we're talking about here is at the corner of in front of 539 Brent and the corner of Zoe and Brent. And in order for us to get power to the building, we need to put a new pole in there. PG&E will not install a pole there. They refuse to install a pole there because the tree is there, and any future tree or canopy, they won't allow us to install a pole there. We respectfully request the Bureau of Urban Forestry to approve this tree removal. As I've come to learn more of this project, I'm sure that it brings many public benefits that the developer and architect are speaking about and will speak to about in their presentations. If you have any follow-up questions for me, I can be contacted directly at the information on the below letter. Yeah. So in finishing, I just want to remind you that I have tried through three different supervisors on this project, PG&E supervisor, to get the power to the building without removing the tree, and all 3 attempts have been declined. So in order, if they want this project to go ahead, sadly we need to remove the tree. That's my.
That's your time. Thank you very much, Mr. Canning.
Thank you.
Okay, if there's any other member of the public, you may raise your hand. I see a Shane Harris raising their hand.
Yes.
Yes, hello.
Yes,
Can
go
everybody
ahead.
hear
We
it?
can hear. We can
I
hear.
would, I would like to share my screen as well, if that's possible.
Okay, just one moment. Okay, we can see your picture and hear you. So at this time, you should be able to hit the share screen feature.
I do not see the share screen feature.
It's a green button either at the top. There should be a top panel at the top of your screen or at the bottom of your screen. It shows mute, start video, chat, and share screen.
It sometimes it appears if you bring your cursor down low or down high, and then
Okay.
the bottom bar will show up.
My apologies, I cannot get it to show up.
That's okay. Sometimes just let it hover a little bit at the top or at the bottom.
Okay.
Let it hover, and then it'll pop in. And if you are unable to share your screen, what you can do is you can make your verbal comments, and I'll give you 3 minutes, and then you can email us anything that you wanted to share as well, and email it to our inbox, and we will get it to the hearing officer.
Oh, this is highly unfortunate because I need to point to the thing at the same time. My apologies, but I don't. It is not. I'm aware of what the green box looks like. I've used it many times on other Zoom meetings, but it is not coming up for me.
Okay.
You could try to demote him back to attendee and then re-promote him, and it could work.
Okay. All right, just a moment. Mr. Harris, can you unmute yourself? Okay, now
There we
it's
go.
Thank you so much.
Thank you, Mr. Keller.
Yeah, the green box, the green screen obviously came up. Okay, hello. My name is Shane Harris, and I am a construction consultant working with Susan on this project. And as Susan briefly mentioned earlier, we have been working with PG&E since June 25th of 19. That's 25 months, trying to figure out how to deal with our PG&E cabling that needs to go in order for us to build the building. As you can see from this picture, there are wiring going in front of the building along Bryant as well as along Zoe Street. And the top groups of wires are high voltage wires. The high voltage wires need to come below grade. And so what you can see in this picture is there's the highest group of 4 wires, and then the next group down, there's 3 wires. Both of those are high voltage. So each of those circuits requires its own pole to come down and then back up again. So down below grade and then back up again. So this is I've moved on to what the building is going to look like. And if you can see, we had no choice but to keep a pole at the corner of our building. We're having to figure out how to work around the OSHA laws, which do not allow us to get within 10 feet of the high voltage lines in order to construct the building. We think we can do this. but the wires had to come down or have to come down along Zoe Street and Bryant Street. Here is an example of the up down. So on the left of the screen, the green line represents one circuit, the upper circuit. The red line represents the other circuit. And these circuits, as Seamus had said, go up and down. They cannot go up or down a pole that has a transformer on it, and they cannot go up and down a pole that already has power going up and down. So we have exhaustively searched through the neighborhood with all kinds of combinations and permutations to try to figure out how to make this happen. And so if we follow the green line from down Bryant Street, it goes down a pole right next to our project at the property line, and then up the corner pole, and then continues down the street as necessary to feed other properties. If you follow the red line, it comes down the only available pole in the far corner on the right-hand side, and it has to come up and then comes up at the corner of Bryant Street, which is the pole in question and the tree in question. So to address real quickly Steve's inquiries, this is a drawing marked up by PG&E, and this is the pole in question. We have to have an anchor wire coming down to hold this pole from falling over to the bottom, towards the bottom of the page. And that is the reason the pole cannot go closer and get outside of the canopy of the tree. That is the main reason. And we've sought alternatives to that without success.
Quick
Thank
follow-up
you.
question, Mr. Harris. So you mentioned that it could not go to the left. What about the other direction? Was that evaluated further?
I don't understand the question.
So you mentioned that you could not have those tree being moved closer to the intersection, but going the other direction, was that possible to install the pole there?
If you can see, can you still see my screen?
I cannot.
I think there's a, from the tree that from the tree they're proposing to remove is tree number like 1, and then after that there's just going west, there's a row of more trees. So that, I guess that would be the answer to that question.
Okay.
Yeah, can you see my screen now by chance?
Yeah.
I can see it.
These trees continue all along. And then the first pole that we encounter beyond this building, it has transformers on it, and we cannot get up that pole because of PG&E's requirement to not allow, it's not a requirement, it's part of the Green Book, and it's their safety regulations that they will not allow you to go up a transformer pole.
Okay.
We've been searching, searching.
Okay. We will now go to any other public comments. I see Ms. Bowler's hand up.
I wonder why it couldn't go across the street, the other to the, you could underground the wires at a right angle from the corner over to the other side of the street, and then run those, figure out where you can connect again with down the rest of the block. I say that because I think that we should have a law that no designs can be made that will require the removal of healthy trees. Flat out, that's it. And I know there isn't such legislation, but it would be good to respect that principle. And so I would like to know why it can't go underground across the street at right angles to where it is and proceed from there. Or has that been considered? And also, when buildings are designed, they could not be so greedy of space and they could leave more sidewalk room. And I suppose the reason they have to be as large, overly large, is because they want to make money back on whatever the uses are privately for the building. But if our needs were respected, the buildings could be designed smaller, leaving more open space for more trees, because more trees are necessary to our environment. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you. We can go to Nathan Rendell next.
Hi, it's Nathan Rendell. I'm the president of the Build Group. I just want to reiterate Susan's point. We're a local San Francisco-based general contractor, and obviously in the pandemic, right, work has slowed down in the city. And this project will put down, approximately 250 local workers to work on this site, kind of in a much needed time when we're just starting to come out of the pandemic. And this project is important from those needs. And just to address the questions from Ms. Bowler, the reason we can't right angle the overhead lines is that the overhead lines are under significant tension. And so before you can turn them at a 90-degree angle, you have to guy the pole. And so as Shane showed in his presentation, right, PG&E has rules where each set of overhead lines can only go up and down one pole. And you got to think of the tension that the overhead lines supply in that pole before you can turn them to the right angle.
Okay, thank you. And we will move to Mr. Shane Harris.
Yes, hi, I just wanted to address Mrs. Bowler's. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Yeah, I just wanted to address Mrs. Bowler's inquiry. We did in fact discuss that with PG&E a multitude of times, and it wasn't just that like Nathan had astutely pointed out of the tension of the wires, but PG&E has rules that do not allow us to do certain things, and we had attempted to go across the street, but their distribution on the other side of the street was not an allowable option by PG&E's Green Book.
Thank you. Was that all of our, I think I gave Shane 2 chances there, and then we have Maya, I believe, already spoke as well. I'll go to Mr. Nolte next. I don't believe he's had the chance to speak.
This is kind of interesting. My first question is, has this actually gone to the Planning Commission? Because these are all planning issues that are being discussed here. I happen to be my name is Michael Nolte. I'm the Executive Director of Alliance for District 6, and this building is in District 6. I've gone to your website during this hearing, and I see that you only have one letter of support from YIMBY, and YIMBY is a pro-development organization. I'm just wondering how the community feels, and it seems like the letter that you showed in your presentation was from the property owner was done within the last couple of days. So I'm just curious to see how much community outreach you've done for this project. It would also kind of, out of curiosity, would be how why can't the wires go all the way around the block? I mean, there's got to be other alternatives, but it seems like at the last minute you have to say, well, this is the only options you have, and we have to do it this way because that's the only option left. And you're deciding to put a building, which is an office building, in at a maximum height, I guess, for the area, and you're making these decisions, and you're giving the community this. If this is your first community outreach about your building, even though it's been in design phase for a couple of years now. That's all I can say. I don't want to say I'm for or against the project, but it seems like there are still a lot of issues that concern the community, and I happen to be a community member. Thank you.
Thank you. And then after this, I see Susan on here. Before we give you one last chance, I wanted to ask Steve, did you have anything that you wanted to address before I?
I mean, I think I do have more information in terms of like, it's not just a singular pole. It's more complicated than I originally had anticipated. And what makes it more complicated is the fact that the Bureau of Urban Forestry would be fine to install a pole and have the tree canopy touch the pole. Whereas PG&E, on the other hand, would say you have to install the pole, but the tree canopy can't ever touch the pole when it comes to new construction. So that kind of adds a whole nother, it essentially adds like a 15-foot buffer of where a tree and a pole cannot coexist. Whereas if that makes any sense, like the Bureau, like Buff would be fine with a tree and a pole touching each other. Like the canopy can reach out and touch it. That's fine. But PG&E will often say for new construction, they don't want trees anywhere near their new poles, and that kind of adds another element that makes designing these things that much tougher. Thanks.
And as I already did give Mr. Harris some time to speak, I'll allow 30 seconds for Ms. Susan Seiji to wrap this up.
Thank you very much, and I will speak in fast forward. I just wanted to acknowledge Mr. McNulty's question. This project was approved by the Planning Commission unanimously last year in October, and that was after a very, very lengthy outreach effort into the community to all of the neighbors in that area. And that is why we were able to get a unanimous vote from the Planning Commission, because we did such good, dense outreach and people supported our project, and because we provided such deep public benefits, including that publicly accessible community space that everybody is going to love and was very pleased with us providing.
Okay, thank you. I don't see any other hands at this time, Ms. Montoya.
Great, thank you. Are there any other public comments from any of the other items of the agenda? If you have spoken, you will not be allowed to speak again. This is for those who may have come late or did not have a chance to speak earlier. If you are one of those people, you can raise your hand now. Okay, yes, looks like everyone on here has had a chance. So if there are no more public comments, I am closing this hearing. Thank you everyone for your comments. I hope everyone has a good rest of their evening. This hearing is now closed.